So, Elaine, your movie Heroin is one of the Oscar-nominated documentary shorts. Tell us a little bit about the movie and I guess what drew you to this subject matter.
So it's a 39-minute film about three women fighting the opioid crisis in Huntington, West Virginia, a fire chief, a drug court judge, and a street missionary. And I was drawn to the topic. I live in West Virginia. I'm from here. This crisis is making headlines all across the country, but West Virginia leads the nation in drug overdose deaths. And it's, impacted a lot of people I know in a very personal way. And so there's been a lot of media made about this topic, but my husband and I made the film together. We wanted to try to find some solutions around the people on the ground actually working towards change every day and not just paint this, hopeless view, because we got to have hope. We live here, and there's got to be some solutions for this problem.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about the three women who you follow in this film. I mean, they're three really extraordinary women. Tell us a little more about them.
Yeah, they are incredible. Jan Rader is the first female fire chief in Huntington, West Virginia, actually in West Virginia's history. And Judge Patricia Keller presides over drug court. Drug court is a rehabilitative style of criminal justice system where instead of locking someone up for drug-related crimes, they put them through a 2-year supervised program. And then Nisha Freeman is a real estate agent and single mom, but on Wednesday nights, she goes out and helps women who are trapped in prostitution because of their drug use. She gives them food. She helps get them into homeless shelters. She talks to them when they are in prison about getting them into rehabs, and just sort of is a huge support for them beyond that Wednesday night when you see her going out in the film. And Jan Rader is the one, all three women work with the people in Huntington on different levels. Jan Rader literally saves them from overdoses, and she creates relationships with people that she's saved in a way that I don't think a lot of first responders typically do. And then Judge Keller in the court system, and Nisha as an individual.
When you first reached out to these women, what were their responses like when you said, "I want to follow you around with a camera and make a movie about you"?
Well, we didn't really, because we live so close to Huntington, we weren't sure what we were doing when we first started doing it. It was more of research around trying to find stories. And the first person we met was Jan Rader, and Jan is a very open person. She kind of took us under her wing. And, for the first week that we knew her, she was introducing us to everyone, trying to deflect attention off of herself. But it was very clear that she had to be in the film. She's just incredibly empathetic, and she's a public servant that I think represents all the values you want in a public servant. And then for drug court, it was a little bit harder. Judge Keller wasn't super on board or understanding of why we would want to film this proceeding. And she was worried about how drug court could come across and those types of things. So it took a while to earn that trust, just sitting in without the cameras. And then Nisha Freeman's biggest concern was, I don't want to reveal the identity of these women. So we shot it in a way where we were blocking faces. And when they would get in the car with us, we'd get their permission, but keep them out of focus. And just trying to accommodate, we never wanted to hinder what they were doing on the ground, whether that was getting in the way of Jan saving someone or getting in the way of the relationship between the judge and the drug court participant, or Nisha's daily work, building trust with these women. So it took a little bit of time, but I certainly think it helps that we're from here. We have a relationship to this issue and the state, and have a vested interest in showing a different version of West Virginia and Appalachia to the nation that I think has a very one-dimensional view of this region.
Mm-hmm. There's obviously a lot of moments in this movie that are very tough to watch. Lots of moments where, people's lives are literally being saved. Can you take us there? Tell us a little bit about the experiences of shooting this movie and some of those literally life and death situations that you portray in the film.
Well, I think the scariest was being with Jan when she goes alone in the apartment building, and she was alone. Like, the rest of the EMS hasn't showed up, and I'm just there with her. It's just Curran, my husband, who was the lead DP on this, wasn't there that particular day, and so it's just Jan and I. And I was nervous. He was behind this bathroom door, and I knew she was going to be the only person to have to get him out, and she was trying to drag him out. And Jan's a pretty small woman. I mean, she's tough, but she's small enough to fit in that crack in the door. And if she wouldn't have been small enough, that guy could have died. And that was a very real situation, that he only had minutes to live. If they wouldn't have gotten to him, he would have stopped breathing. And so, once he came to, Jan and I talked to him about, we had filmed this, and this is what it was for, and we were asking his permission to use the footage. And he asked us to blur his face, and so we did. We had the release form signed, but we chose to blur his face as well. And it's just, that situation is, you ethically have to make a lot of really quick decisions about how you're going to shoot that situation, so you're not exploiting someone's potentially lowest moment for your own benefit for a film. There is a real need to see that destruction and see the negativity as well as the positivity, but you have to take in consideration this is a human being with a family that's going to see this, and think about how to present in a way that's not exploiting them. And so it's difficult, for sure.
Well, you've made some documentaries before this. So, I mean, how did that help prepare you for those kinds of situations?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of shorts, and I've made an interactive documentary. And I think the biggest way, making shorts since 2007 has been a process of learning how to act quickly and think quickly and make ethical decisions on the fly and build relationships with the people that you're filming, so that they can be there for you to help you answer those questions. I mean, I am a journalist first and foremost, so I seek to show truth in what I observe. But there are many times where it's emotionally very difficult, and you talk to Jan, you're like, how would you handle this? Like, how would you handle this situation? And so having that relationship with these women, because they've been in the trenches for so long, and they can sort of help guide, what they've seen other media crews do that's hurt the city and that's hurt first responders, and be honest with us and have an honest conversation about, what's good for people and what's not. I mean, I think that that's the relationship we built with these women. And in that way, because of that, this film is so much theirs as much as it is ours. I mean, they have been using it as a huge educational tool. They've been doing tons of speeches, and they're being recognized at the West Virginia legislature soon, and we're doing a screening for the governor and the legislature. And they've just been able to elevate their platform of being able to just spread kindness. And so that's been really cool to see.
And how has the Oscar nomination for this movie helped bring it to a wider audience? What does that recognition mean for you?
I mean, it's crazy. I really didn't know what to expect. This is the first Oscar nomination I've ever been lucky enough to be a part of. So it's all new to me. I mean, there's all these amazing reviews that come out that bring more attention to it. There's this theatrical run that now it's in all across the US. I mean, it's been on Netflix since September, and we've reached so many people, and so many people have written Jan and the women handwritten letters and messages. They've already received a lot of feedback, but this is just a whole nother level. And I really don't know what to expect, other than just to be extremely grateful for the exposure to this topic, to this conversation, and hope that more people will host community screenings. We've helped facilitate a lot of community screenings in rehabs and prisons and churches using our educational guide that's on our website, herointhefilm.com. And I just hope that this only helps that. I mean, the film is made to not give answers or solutions necessarily, but to start conversations in communities.
Was it difficult? I mean, I'm assuming you followed these women around for a very long time. I mean, was it difficult paring down the footage to just 39 minutes? I mean, can you talk about how you made those decisions of what to include and what not to include?
It was difficult. Kristen Newtill is our editor, and we worked closely with her to figure out how to balance the three. And I think certainly the balance was put a little bit out of whack once Jan became the first female fire chief. She really rose to a whole nother level in the film, and that happened a year into production. So I think that one thing I wish, it's a short, so you can only do so much with it. One thing I wish we could have shown more is sort of their backstory, like where they go when they're not at work, and who they are outside of work. I don't know that we were able to do that in 39 minutes. And so that was probably the hardest thing to pare down, because I think that's an equally important part. But because we wanted this to be a verite film, we actually lit and shot sit down interviews that we chose not to use, because every time we would put them in the edit, it just stopped the momentum. And so this 39-minute sort of scene after scene of like people in either an emergency situation or in their car helping someone or in the courtroom, we just were able to create sort of a rhythm of how these women's lives go about without trying to over explain anything. We didn't want a bunch of statistics. I mean, that's what the media is doing on a daily basis now, is like sharing these grim statistics. And so we just wanted to make this human, and about the ups and downs. So
Mhm. Um, in the films that you make, I mean, what attracts you to the documentary shorts and all that you have done in your career? I mean, what subject matters really speak to you?
I mean, I'm interested in resilience and change and how people respond to change. And, I don't know that I necessarily am drawn to shorts more than features. It's just been sort of what I've been working, the space I've been working in, because I did come from journalism, and that short space is certainly supported by like the New York Times and Field of Vision. And so, I am drawn to stories of people overcoming disruption in their life, whether that's depopulation or loss of industry or a drug epidemic. I'm interested in people's work, their labor, and sort of the humanity behind topics that I think we often separate ourselves from. Like, that's a problem over there, that's not my problem. And I like to make media that clearly situates problems as being part of society's conversation, not just bound to one person to take care of. So, yeah, I would say that's about it.
Um, like you said, I mean, it's often talked about as a statistic, but it is a very real problem that affects people. Not just in West Virginia, unfortunately, but all over the country. I mean, I think people feel sort of helpless about it. But I guess from your experience of watching these women in this town deal with this problem, I mean, what is something that people can do in order to help? I mean, because there's a lot of people who are watching this who probably have a loved one that's been affected by this problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at this crisis from a bird's eye view and you see these statistics and you don't know a person involved, or you don't know a person making change involved, it's very difficult to sort of even wrap your head around what the solutions are. I mean, it's not going to be a federal solution that's going to solve this. I mean, certainly some funding for recovery and rehabilitation beds and detox beds and medically assisted treatment would help a ton, but it's going to be these grassroots effort, and it's going to look different in every community. Every community is going to have to respond to how they care for one another differently. And I think that that's the biggest message that I know Jan and the other women believe in, is that it's about empathy. It's about being kind to one another. I mean, I think people, when they first meet Nisha, they think of her as this, Jesus freak type person. They learn she's not a one-dimensional person, evangelical that's, believes everyone should act a certain way. She is out there to help whoever will come across her path. And I just think that if we all would look to help one other person, I mean, recovery is extremely difficult. Most people go about their lives avoiding change, trying not to change. And recovery is the deepest form of change, where you have to look at your past and your present and move forward in a way that's different than how you've lived your entire life. And sometimes that means leaving family behind, because in West Virginia, you're seeing a lot of generational addiction, and it's very hard. And so go to your local rehab or recovery center, encourage someone, feed your local EMS and fire departments, bring them some cookies, like write them a thank you note. I mean, I think those acts are very small, and certainly funding is a huge thing, but teach yourself about naloxone and Narcan, learn how to administer it. It'll sort of open your eyes. Once you start doing that, it'll open your eyes to many ways to care for your own community.
Well, it's a very powerful movie, and thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the Oscar nomination and all the acclaim for it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.